Right, hey everyone, welcome to Visualizing Data with Tableau. We're going to let folks keep trickling in, especially for the online folks. I'm going to move ahead one slide here to give you the links to Tableau Public and the sample data. If you have not downloaded those and you want to follow along, I really hope you've done this beforehand. It will save you some time and let you keep up. I'm going to let people keep trickling in so my screen doesn't clutter up too terribly. All right, so we'll move on. This Data Lab course is brought to you by Data Services. We provide a number of data-related services. Go ahead and contact us at our website through Olin Library to get in touch with us. We have a lot of specialization in GIS and GIS-related services, but also just about anything else on your screen. This is our team here. I'm Zachary Shpaniak, the data curator and GIS librarian. With us here today also is Molly Webb, data and GIS developer, who has graciously agreed to help me out. This is part of the Data Lab series, about middle of the pack here. So if you've missed any so far, you can still go see a workshop on proper documentation and on data cleaning. The data cleaning does pair in nicely with Tableau because you need good clean data to get the most out of Tableau. So why use Tableau? First off, it's easier than a lot of other software to use. It's low code. Knowing some database fundamentals, some SQL does help, but you can get by knowing nothing about code. Tableau can connect with multiple data sources, and you can bring them all into one place. You can more quickly create better visualizations than, say, Microsoft Excel. The version we're using today, Tableau Public, is free. That's a big plus. And there is an excellent community and documentation. So you can take this introduction and keep learning through the documentation, through the community. It's how I learned this software, and it's pretty in depth and easier to follow. So we're working with Tableau Public, the free version. When most people talk about Tableau in, say, the business world or even data world, they may be talking about desktop, the paid version. The differences between the two are that Tableau Public, it's free, but all your workbooks, all the data you put in your workbooks are not private. They are saved on the cloud. They're freely accessible to anyone who wants to search hard enough and find it. With that, you cannot save your workbooks locally with Tableau Public. It's only saved on the Tableau servers. So using your login, you can access these at any point on any computer that has Tableau Public. But again, you can't save on your own PC. It's privacy or the control over that is a concern. Tableau Public also has limited data connections. That being said, it's most of what the everyday person needs to connect to. You can connect to Microsoft Excel, CSV files, text, JSON, Microsoft Access, PDF files, a multitude of spatial data file formats, shape files, GeoJSON, a multitude of statistical formats, ranging from RR data to SPSS and SAS. You can also connect to online servers through OData and Google Drive. If you pay for the desktop version, you can access any server you have a connection. Any server, basically. So if your company or your school or department has a server, including Box, you can go and connect to that. You're also limited to 15 million rows of data per workbook. That sounds like a whole lot, and it is for most people, but for some heavy duty data sets, that is not much.
I don't think questions in between the word is wave or certain breaks, but we do have a few questions coming.
Yeah.
So I can try and answer them in the chat if that would help.
That would help. Okay. Yeah.
What's the question? What's your question? Sure.
We have just a few questions coming into the chat here. The first one, how does not being able to save my work to the computer affect HIPAA? I would say you would not want to work with HIPAA data on Tableau Public.
Yes, that's
because it's public.
Definitely a situation where you would want Tableau desktop, Tableau server, keep it private.
There's a question about Smartsheet integration.
I have not integrated Smartsheet and Tableau, so I'd have to look into that question. Molly, have you done anything with that?
Yeah, I can add, there is a data connector for Smartsheet in Tableau desktop. I don't know if Tableau Public has the same connector.
Yeah, doubt it.
There's a few individual questions about people having trouble download, so I'll go ahead and answer those in the chat. I don't know if those would be as of interest to the folks here.
Yeah.
So please go ahead. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So like I've said before, if you're wondering about cost, Tableau Public is free. If you are looking to obtain a copy of Tableau Desktop for yourself, you'd have to go get the Tableau Creator package, where one seat is $900 annually. This does give you desktop. It gives you Prep Builder, a separate product that helps you clean your data, and Tableau Cloud, which is a online browser version of Tableau that does most of what Tableau Desktop does, with some limitations. Most in the formatting area, you don't have as much control over how your stuff looks, though there may be some further caveats to that. If you Just looking for if you're looking for something cheaper, Tableau Explorer just gets you that Tableau Cloud. All of these also have server options that Tableau, the website, would not give me a price on. You have to contact for that if a school is interested. And yeah, with that, as far as I'm aware, there's no Danforth campus-wide Tableau desktop license. You'd have to check this on a school by school, even office by office basis. If you're with WashU, I tried looking at different schools and the information is not public, what's available and what's not. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go to Tableau itself. Tableau is focused on visualizing your data. So you need to start with your data and make sure it's clean. Tableau can help you find if it is dirty because you'll see outliers fairly easily. But you also need to pay attention to the structure of your data. When we create spreadsheets, databases, we as humans like wide formats. We like a separate field for each bit of information to see everything in a horizontal format. This is pretty natural. Tableau likes machine readable long format data. So this is, and it looks weird to us humans because we've got this first row in long format duplicates. So to get through a long format, whereas wide format, we use our eyes to scan across. In long format, it's more common to use filters to say, I'm looking for all rows within team A. So I'm going to filter for team A, and I'm going to see each of these rows, each of these points of data. You can put something wide format in Tableau. You're going to be wrestling with it the whole time to get what you want. And that, unfortunately, is something that perhaps is better learned through experience than me talking about it. So let's start fresh, actually. So everyone following along, go ahead and pull up your version of Tableau Desktop. We're going to connect to our Superstore data. So this is the home page. On here on our left is where we can choose what file to connect to. This pane is a lot more filled out if you have the paid version of Tableau. Superstore is an Excel spreadsheet. So we can connect to it through Excel, then you've got a browser window, find wherever you have it saved, and connect. Once you're connected, you will find yourself on the data source screen. This is giving you a view of, so if I pull up the actual Excel spreadsheet, this is what it looks like. It's got 3 tabs. And I wish this Zoom would be out of my way. There we go. And we see that represented here in sheets. Orders here has the most information. So you can click and drag it in. You can double click it to bring it in. What this is going to do is it's going to give you a preview of your data and start assigning it data types and Tableau isms. So if I scroll using this pane, I can see everything that's in the sheet. On this right side, you can probably see more than I can, hopefully can. But if you could, you would see that it is telling you every field in your spreadsheet. It's telling you which table it's coming from, the field name, and then giving you a symbol for the type of data that it is. So if you have some knowledge of databases, you're familiar with the fact that that data has different types. In a database, we've got numbers, decimal, and whole. We've got two different types of date, one with time. We've got string, which is any alphanumeric character. We've got spatial type, that's unique to this in spatial software. And then we've got Boolean type, which is 0 or 1, true or falses. So this can be a way to make sure that Tableau has gone and interpreted your data correctly, especially pay attention to dates. So here it looks like it got it right. It's a date, make sure it's not saying date time or didn't bring it in as a string by accident. If it did bring it in as something you didn't want, you just go ahead and click and it would change it. It is important to point out that anything that happens in Vegas, anything that happens in Tableau stays in Tableau. So we can mess around with data types. We can create new columns and make changes in Tableau, and it will not affect the source data that we are pulling from. So feel free to experiment or create new fields that better serve your data analysis. Within this data source screen, if you need to join different tables together, this is where you would do it. Joining is where you take two tables that have a common field, common unique field. So let's say we have two tables. Well, for example, in this spreadsheet, in this data set, order ID, product ID, these are unique to these rows. And if I look in, for example, returns, yes, I can see there's an order ID field. So when I perform a join, I can match these two fields together and essentially bring in this return field. When you just drag it in, Tableau will do some machine magic and attempt to identify what your unique field is. In this case, it got it correct, order ID and order ID. We're saying that the order ID in order is the same thing as the order ID in return. So it should bring in the return field. For this demonstration, we don't particularly need that. So I'm going to pull it out. All right, we've got our data. So we're moving from this data source tab to sheet 1. All right, this is the workhouse. Workhorse, excuse me. This is really bothering me. So a few points on the UI. This is the undo button. Tableau keeps track of every action you do, so you can undo your way all the way back to the connect screen if you want. So Tableau through this is encouraging you to experiment, to fiddle with things, to tweak with things, make mistakes. It's how I learned using this. It's likely how you will learn as well. You will make some mistakes, many mistakes. The undo button is your friend. These right here are your shelves. And this is your data pane. So we can see here that each of these is one of the fields in our Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to bring in where is it? Order date. I'm going to drag it to columns. And you can see Tableau is already trying to start doing something with that information. It's identified that there are 4 different years. And I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to drag in sales. And boom, we already have a rudimentary line graph tracking sales over a year. But you'll notice this is very aggregated. Our Excel spreadsheet goes down to individual customers, cities, different geographies. Tableau will automatically pull up all your data to its highest level. So if we've got data recorded at the daily level, but also week, month, and year, it's going to start you with the year. And then by pressing on this plus, we can start drilling down further into days for this particular data set. Again, it's not pulling this data out of thin air. The underlying data has things down to the day level. It's drilling down, but it's aggregated up to the highest level first. So you can remove things by remove the Tableau parlance for these are pills. I don't know if I like that, but it's maybe what we'll go with here. You can remove each of these pills by right-clicking, going down to remove, or you can click and drag them to your screen. These are called cards. And I haven't done much with pages, honestly, but filters is big. This is where if I wanted to, and I'll show more of this later, but just briefly, if I wanted to start filtering down, I might say, where it is, I might pull my order date into filters, and I might decide I only want to look at June's for all these years. So now this is only showing June of 2014, 2015, 16, and 17, but it has sliced your data to just show those Junes. This card, your marks card, I'll again show more of this later. It's where you can start customizing the look, the appearance of your pills. So by pulling, for example, well, let's use one that's already in here. The order date into color. You can see it starts trying to change this by color. I could go by size. So this is where you can start changing how things look. Label will start your labeling process. Clicking any of these further will let you start customizing it. And you can go in pretty deep on this. You could make things, I can put a label on it, and then I can also do size. And it starts, based on what I'm putting in here, Tableau starts trying to interpret what I'm doing and make different visualizations out of it. This isn't what I wanted, so I'm going to undo. All right. 2 final terminology bits. Tableau divides fields into dimensions and measures. So dimensions are the qualitative data, such as a name or a date. So these are all dimensions up here. There's a little line between measure names and, in this case, discount. That shows everything above the line is a dimension, everything below is a measure. So by default, Tableau's automatically classifying data that contains this qualitative information or categorical information as a dimension. These generally appear as like column headers for the rows of data, and they define the level of granularity. Below this line are the measures, and they are the quantitative numerical data. So by default, Tableau will treat any numeric type data as a measure. It can be, leave that point alone. So something can be a dimension or a measure. It can also be continuous or discrete. And continuous fields can create an infinite number of values. So usually that's your quantitative data. So because we can go from 600,000 to 600,000.25. Technically, we could keep splitting it into infinity. So most quantitative data, most measures are also continuous. In that same vein, most dimensions are discrete, where they contain a finite number of values. So there are only a finite number currently of countries, of cities. Those are discrete. However, something like date can be a category, can be continuous or discrete. So you can change these depending on how you want to display, how you want Tableau to display your data. And I wish I could tell you a magic way to figure that out. In many cases, using your undo button a lot, trial and error is a way I've figured that out. But if, say, I did want to make order date instead of a dimension, I wanted to make it a measure, I could just drag it on down. I could change it to discrete. So, it is discrete right now. I can change it to continuous by right-clicking it, and see it turns green, and it's changing how it looks. Discrete data is usually better for bar graphs than line graphs, so it's trying to turn it into a line graph or a bar graph, excuse me. So it's important to keep track of the colors of your pills on top. If you want to use this show me button, which is a shortcut way to change your visualization. So right now, we have a date field, that's a dimension, and one measure. So it's tried bringing us into a line graph automatically. Anything that's not grayed out means we have the right combination of dimensions and measures here. So I could click this and change it. It's the same data, but just change it from a line graph to a bar graph, or a heat map, pie graph. It doesn't mean that it's the appropriate measure for the situation, but you can change it.
Typically default to the one that it thinks for that.
I don't think so. I mean, it does in that line graphs and bar graphs are usually the best thing to go with, and that's what it's trying to default to usually. If you want to do anything fancier, though, go to the show me. If you want, so say I wanted a histogram, I see, oh, I can look here at the bottom and see that it's just wanting one measure. So maybe if I pull out that, I can change this to a histogram. So it'll give you guidance if you're not sure how to get to that. Go ahead and look at the bottom of the pane. It's giving you those recommendations. So I'm going to back up here. You can put, again, multiple pills up here. So I'm going to add, let's see, category up at the top here. That's not where I wanted it. That's where I wanted it. All right, and so by putting category up here, it's automatically changed it to a bar graph because we have these discrete categories of products to start looking at. And I'm also going to add subcategory. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to play around with what you've just learned. And before we do that, I'll show you a valuable tool called duplicating a tab. You can see down here, sheet 1, that's the name of this tab. If you double click it, you can rename it. I'm going to call it categories. It also changes the title of your worksheet. By right-clicking it, I can categorize it in different colors. I can also duplicate. So now I've created a new tab that's almost exactly the same as the old one. And this way you can mess around with this new tab without changing what we've built up on this first tab. All right. 5 minutes to start messing around. Let me set a timer here. It'll be a terrible timer, but we're going to go with it. It is a terrible timer. 5 minutes plus 12 seconds. Yeah. So you're asking if it's possible to export the numbers from your, so you've aggregated things in Tableau and then you want to export your new calculations or new spreadsheet? Yeah. In the paid desktop version, very easy. You can export straight from the application. In this free version, I believe we need to save it to the servers first, then go to where it's hosted on the servers, and then download it from there. And I will show how to do that near the end. So we will get to that. Molly, thanks for answering all those questions. All right, everyone, welcome back. I heard lots of clicking over here in person. That's great. That's what I want to hear. All right, so you can keep or delete your experimental tab, whichever you prefer. I'm going to go back to the original categories tab. And I'm going to show you a little more of how you can filter and play around with the data for exploratory purposes. Now, when we go through data, we can divide it through exploratory and explanatory phases, where exploratory is where we're looking for the story in the data, and explanatory is where we are telling the story of the data. We are still in the exploratory phase right now, so that's why we're not going to right now mess with titles or labels or fancy colors, but well, more fancy colors. And we'll get to that once we get to dashboards. So we showed a little bit how we can add filters. And this is a situation where we probably do want to add some filters. We're covering 4 years and lots of categories, and it's hard to find any patterns in this. So just we're going to drag order date into filters. We're going to filter by year. So we can do any combination of years here. We're going to go with the most recent year. We can add multiple filters now. So I'm also going to add drag subcategory over to here. And let's see, there's some good ones. Looks like in the office supplies category, envelopes, fasteners, and labels aren't doing well. So I'm going to clear everything here by pressing none. And I'm going to focus on our envelopes, fasteners, and labels. You'll notice that the scale automatically changed when I did that. So whereas in this view, these look pretty tiny because we're being compared to some much larger sales figures. When we take those out, it's adjusted so that these look like a lot more sales than they are. That's something to keep in mind. It's something we can adjust. Over here in the axes, we can edit axis, and we can put a custom fixed scale on here. So the other one was, I believe, 10K or 100K even. So we can put in 100. And so that would keep our scale the same as when we had the larger numbers. This is more important, this particular part, for when you're displaying your data to others, but not a bad idea when you're working with it so that you don't think you're working with larger numbers than you actually are. So backing up to before where I added those, the axis cap. And I'm going to I'm going to drag profit here. Not rename it. Come on. I'm going to drag it over to color. So just by doing that, we are now seeing the sum of sales in terms of the graph, and the shape and the size, but we're also now seeing color as a dimension profit as a dimension through color. So we're starting to get to a complicated bit of information here. Tableau will automatically assign your ends here of your bins. So minimum of 304, max of 1745. For, let's see. We can adjust this then by over in this card here. I'm clicking this drop down, going to edit colors. And let's say I don't want a ramped color gradient here. Let's say because I'm looking at profit, I want to see if it's diverging, if we have positive profit or negative profit. That's a diverging color scheme because we're showing what's above zero and what's below zero. So I'm going to go over here to the diverging color schemes. And we'll pick something more colorblind friendly. And apply it. And so it's picking the median between these. And it's saying, fasteners is below the median. You can clearly see based on color. We could take out our filter here. So I'm going to remove this. Oh, we are still. Okay, I'm also going to edit access because I changed it to custom and I change it back to automatic. And we'll see that this changed here to 0. I'm going to bring up a new worksheet because one of the advantages to Tableau is its spatial capabilities, which have come a long way from when Tableau first was released. We can look at all this data in a map because we've included some spatial identifiers. City, country, we can look through and see on our data pane, if it has this little globe, Tableau has automatically identified that as a geographic data type. And that is because, let's see, there are certain geography levels Tableau will recognize automatically. Cities, countries, states, it will recognize. If you're working with something like zip codes or custom territory for your business venture, sorry, not zip codes, census tracts or custom territory for your business, then it won't automatically recognize that. You'll have to include in your table coordinates, latitude and longitude for it to recognize this, or have a separate spatial file. But we have these already in here. So let's play with state first. So if you double click state, it's going to drag your state dimension over into the detail section of your mark. And it's going to drag longitude and latitude measures automatically to the proper position for columns and rows, which is great because I'm a geographer and even I sometimes get it confused which one's supposed to go where. If you did want to put it in yourself, you could use this swap row columns field. So if, let's say we put it in by accident and it looks like this, that's not how it should look. We would click this swap rows and columns and it would bring it to a map. You will see though that it is just showing the central point of each state and not actually the shape of the state that we're looking for. So to do that, I'm going to pull region here into color. Oh, there we go. Okay. So what I had to do here, so up here in the marks, it was an automatic. I'm just putting it as points. I'm going to click on the drop-down menu and scroll down to map, and it will fill in the actual shape of your state. Out of curiosity, I'm going to filter by region here. So dragging region to filter, I'm going to just select South, and the map's going to filter out all the non-South states. Again, this region was defined in the data set originally. We didn't create any new data here. And now I can make from here a static map from the data by pulling in sales to color. So we could see this as a bar graph. It would show similar things in terms of the number of sales for states. But here we can see the states visually, which is useful. By hovering over something, we have a tooltip will automatically pop up. It will show the measures that you currently have in this mark box, measures or dimensions. If I wanted to edit that, I could click on tooltip and I could start changing what goes in here. I could change the color, the size. I could bring in other fields that aren't necessarily in the map. I'm going to replace, so we looked at profit before, so I'm going to go ahead and drag profit and just replace sales profit. So you can see you can easily replace what you're looking at. So we can see here that Tennessee, North Carolina, and Florida have negative profit. So we could ask ourselves, like, what's going on with these states? But if we look in our data, what's dragging these profits down? I'm going to name this sheet map. These are also terrible names, by the way. So do as I say and not as I do, and make them descriptive names so you don't have to keep trying to refigure out what you were doing on each of these tabs. So a more descriptive name might be Southern Profits Map. Even that's not great. All right. So I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to change it to a horizontal bar graph. So this is just showing you can take that information you had in one visualization on one tab, and without changing any of the pills, you can change what it looks like. So again, we see our negatives here. Let's go ahead and select only those negatives. And that is, if you're using, well, you should be using the mouse and keyboard. If you hold down Control and click on those individual names, you'll select just those. Now I'm going to right click and say keep only. So I have created a subset of that data. So state was a larger geography. We also have data for the profits for individual cities. So let's take a look at that as well. No, other way. So you can see here, the order matters for these pills. I don't particularly like how this looks, so I'm going to switch the order, and it has one field we show this as all the cities in a state, so it's organized it in a more intuitive manner. So this is still a lot of cities to sort through, a little too much cognitive load. So I'm going to add what's called a top N filter. So I'm selecting the top or bottom of the measure. Drag city into filters. And these tabs that we've ignored before, I'm going to move over to top. I'm going to say by field, I want to know the worst performing 5 cities. So I'm going to change the number to 5. And I do want to know profit aggregated by sum. Let's see. Excellent. So here we've just selected out the top cities within each, excuse me. All right, so these are the worst performers. Jacksonville is switched over to positive profit. And that's strange, because a lot of our stuff was in the negative beforehand. So just to make sure something weird isn't going on, I mentioned before that Tableau aggregates everything together. So it's possible that we are getting multiple Jacksonville, North Carolinas into one measure. So just to check what's going on, I'm going to drag postal code in here. Still weird. Right, so that must be part of the data set. So we've just gone over a number of different ways to go down and create filters and subsets. So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes to create a duplicate and start messing with the data sets more and see what trouble you can get in with your own explorations.
While we're doing the break.
Yeah.
There was a question on the chat that I think might be helpful to the folks in the room, and
Yeah.
that was, I accidentally hid my filters card. How can I get it back?
That is good.
Let's see if Zach can us out off the top of his head.
All right.
If not, I can give you a.
So I believe it's these reset cards.
Yep.
Right here. You can filter it.
The door, take a right through the clear door, open another route. Yes, yes. And yeah, especially when you're walking from the so I don't know what's that. You mentioned it, the down was wide.
So you said there is a Tableau server you saw was in one Worcester? Or
Yeah, I said, WashU, yeah, I saw this,
Yeah.
not which I don't. So we have to pick up the public or scanning by the choices of chemistry.
and
You want me to handle it?
yeah, if you're more aware of the
Okay, let's-
So yeah, it is confusing. There's a lot of different versions of Tableau available, and also even when we're talking only about web-based versions, there's more than one web-based version as well. So Tableau Public, what we're working with right now, is the one that's completely free, but also completely public. So all of the data and your visualizations can only be saved on Tableau's public cloud that Tableau manages, okay? There's Tableau Cloud, which you mentioned, which is a licensed user-based web version of Tableau. That is something that can be private to just you, but it requires paying money to Tableau to have an account and save the stuff just for you on their servers.
Plus, like,
You would personally need to pay that if you want to do that, okay? There's Tableau Server. Now, Tableau Server is something we have at WashU, but it's not like a campus-wide resource. Well, let me back up a little bit. So Tableau Server is a web-based version of Tableau Cloud, essentially, that WashU maintains in their own servers. In order to use Tableau Server, you have to request a Tableau Server site, which is typically done at the organizational level. So for example, here at the library, we have a Tableau Server site that is for internal library projects and visualizations. So Joan, that's the one that you would use since you're a library staff person. Work for MedCampus, your lab, arts and sciences, your department, whatever. Check with the IT contact or administrative contact in your organization if you're interested in running a Tableau Server site. It requires that you need an administrator to agree to administer the whole site. So that's why it's not something that individuals tend to do on their own. It tends to be at your like unit level. But that's available through WooIT. WooIT manages everything about that. So that is something that you'll contact either IT help desk at woostel.edu or call the service desk, and they can help you out with that. There is Tableau Desktop, which Zach mentioned. That is also a licensed product. So again, you're going to want your department or your unit to pony up the money for that if you want to actually download the full featured version of Tableau Desktop to your own machine. That typically does come along with the license to Tableau Server as well. So there's a lot of different iterations of Tableau, but bottom line, if you're going to be working on things that are internal to your department or your lab, you're probably going to want to get one of these more private versions of Tableau, which is going to cost you some money. And then if you're just wanting to kind of mess around or put your visualizations out there publicly, then sure, go ahead and use Tableau because it's public. Does that make sense? It took me like a long time to figure out that whole thing. And also, I do just want to plug through the CAPS continuing education wing that we have here at WashU, formerly U College. There's a great Tableau class called Data Visualization in Tableau. I don't know if it's offered every semester, it's offered often. I took it last fall and I found it very helpful. If you're a WashU staff person, you know, maybe that might be something you want to use your tuition benefit for. You know, it is a full semester class, so it does require some work. But I found it really helpful, and it did help me kind of understand the different versions of Tableau that are available and what might be best for me. So, okay. Thank you. Good question.
All right, so we've been going over a lot of exploratory data processes with the worksheets, kind of figuring out what story we want to tell. We can take that a step further with dashboards. And dashboards can also be used to for the explanatory part. So you have a story to tell, you want to show users this particular aspect of the data. So to create a new dashboard, I went down to these tabs. There's one that looks like a quadrant window pane. I go ahead and click that to open up a new. Man, mine is small. Why is this so small? I'm gonna, oh, there we go. You can adjust the dimensions as I'm trying to do. I'll make do. Hopefully yours looks better. So in this, you can arrange and combine and display the different worksheets that you've created. So if I look over here on the left-hand side where the data pane is on a worksheet, I can see the different worksheets that I've created. I can then drag and drop them into this workspace. By default, they'll take up as much space as they can. You can add different, so these are types of objects to add in. You can add in other objects to this. So I can add in a title. Simple workbook. Everything is tiled by default. So it does take some manipulation to get things looking how you may want. You can change things from these fixed tiles to a floating container by selecting the object, clicking this little arrow, and clicking floating. The problem is then that it divorces that object from the rest of the tiles. So mine is now floating above everything. So you can go through and make everything floating. Or you can work with the tiles. Either way, either one's going to require fiddling around to get things in the shape that you want. Now, I could put them in like this too. So here, when I drag something in, I'm dragging it in like a tile. If I select floating, I'm dragging it in as its own box. If you want to, so you can put in, again, multiple, still here, multiple workbooks at the same time. And this is useful if you want to show that these visualizations are showing different aspects of the same data. You can connect them with actions as well. So I could, so as a quick shortcut, I can click this drop-down menu and say, I want to use this map as a filter, which means that now if I select any of these states, I have changed this. I'm now filtering this categories bar chart by the state of North Carolina or Georgia or Tennessee.
Same data, which was stuff I don't know, but actually the two entities connect each other.
Yes, yeah, they connect. You can, if it's this default use as filter works in most circumstances, well, in many circumstances, especially for quick, simple filters. If you want to customize it a little more, or let's say you have 4 or 5 different sheets in here, and you only want to filter by state for one of the other visualizations and not the other, you can click over here on dashboard and go down to actions. So this is what we just generated. If I click on edit, I can change the name, which I recommend. I've had worksheets with 10 or 20 different filters and highlights applied, so a good descriptive name is invaluable. what you're doing here is you're saying on this dashboard one, when you select something in the map, in that same dashboard, you're going to show all values on these categories, or sorry, on these worksheets. You can, so this is where maybe, I don't have another one to add in. Never mind that line of thought. You can add, so I used use worksheet as a filter to auto-generate. You can also just create one. So we were filtering, we can also highlight. So here I'm creating one, highlight, sample. On this dashboard, if I select something on the map, I want you to change something on the bar chart, or I want you to only show to highlight something on the bar chart, and I want you to do it on all fields. I could change it to just to any of those other fields as well to customize this action further. I'm gonna remove that.
So how do you do that action?
Yeah. So to get to the actions window pane, up at the top, it says dashboard. And then about midway down under show title, we have actions. And this is showing the global actions right now. So all the actions for the entire, for this particular workbook, it could go into more granularity with selecting for this sheet. Through these actions, you can put in links to locations outside of the workbook, so external websites or file locations. You can put in links to go to other sheets within your dashboard. Maybe you don't want to display a sheet, or maybe I've made a worksheet, I've made a dashboard where selecting a picture on it would take you to a separate dashboard within the same workbook. So you can go within just different areas in your own workbook that way as well. So just as worksheets kind of make up a building block of dashboards, you can use dashboards as a building block for a story. And this really leans hard into the exploratory part. So you have a story you want to share to your coworkers, bosses, classmates. This is where you can organize how they're seeing your data. So I get to that by clicking on this little open book tab. And creating this is very similar to making a dashboard. So once you've learned how to make a dashboard, you can make a story. You pull in your different items here. You can add in descriptive text, like to pull attention to your points. So like low profits in North Carolina. Hopefully you'd have something deeper to say than that. And you can organize the pages in that as well. So overview of profits. Molly, am I just not able to see where to add a new page on here? I'm not seeing it. Yeah. Oh, never mind. New story point. There we go. Sorry. So by adding new story points, it's like a PowerPoint presentation where you can keep guiding them along with different views of data that you set up. All right. So I think that's enough to, if you were scared of Tableau before, hopefully, hopefully you know enough now you can get started. I will be sending out this slide deck where the latter end of it is all different links with some of the things out and different resources. And there's also a recording of this this presentation. So we can take some time. You can keep messing around with what you've done. This workshop runs until 12, so I can keep fielding questions till then. You can work with stuff and I can answer questions. Yeah. So thank you for your time.
Well, okay, dash, if I want to change the size and sheet and having any other.
So so the question was, how can we change so if we're adding new elements in, how we can change the size of these elements? Is that? Yeah. Mhm. So you want them to stay fixed rather than change. It's working in a finite space. So in my experience, and maybe I've just been doing it the hard way for a decade now. But when you change one, it keeps changing the others. Yeah, so whatever one it's adjacent to. So I can change this and it's changing the one it's next to, but it's not changing this lower one. But it's got to make everything fit in the same space.
You could maybe, if you want to ensure that certain elements stay the same size, you could set up your entire dashboard as floating instead of tiled.
Mhm.
Tiled by default is going to adjust to fill the space like Zach mentioned, but or floating elements will remain the same size until you resize them. There's caveats to both methods, trust me.
Yeah. I was going to bring in just floating. I'd have to, so I toggled this to floating, so everything automatically comes in. But I'm still having to, do various adjustments. Things aren't lining up as nicely. So pros and cons to each approach. Yes. Yes, I was going to get to that. Thank you for reminding me. Since we're using Tableau Public, publishing it is the only way we can save it. So they're synonymous in this case. So I would go to File and save to Tableau Public as whatever. It's going to have you sign in. Tableau Public is really making sure that You don't put private or confidential information on here. This is nice. This didn't used to be here. When you save, it will save. When you publish or save, it will save all of these tabs to the website. So as you can see, it's automatically bringing me to the Tableau public site. And this is the workbook. Mhm. Yes. So I'm going to show, so by default, whatever sheet you are on when you save is going to be the first sheet that shows up. So if we wanted, let's see if I can redo this. So just the story.